All right, welcome back to another After Dark, everyone. Hope you all are having a good night. How was your day, huh? How you been? Cool day over here. Actually, we got a little bit of storm coming in, and the weather is, well, it's in about the mid 80s, which is really nice. We got some rain, crazy thunder. So if you guys hear a loud explosion sound, don't worry about it. It's just some crazy thunder, and it sounds straight up like a bomb going off. And I'll only worry about it if my house catches on fire or something, then that's a whole different thing. But anyways, nice day over here. That means I get to have a walk with my dog later on, and I'm very thankful. Anyways, that's my own personal stuff. It's crazy when it's like 110 degrees every day. We get thankful for 80s. Like, I'm really thankful right now. So anyways, here's a video I wanted to check out a while ago, and I never did. It's a video by a channel called Rebound Rewind, and this is called putting an asterisk on potential NBA GOATs. I thought this would be a cool thing because this is going to be a non-biased thing, and how we all do it. We all put an asterisk on every single GOAT. Let's just be real. No matter who our GOAT is, we all do this with other GOATs. It's just the way it goes. It's just the way sports goes, you know? And I'm not even going to get into it because I'm sure we're going to get into it each individual as this video proceeds. So it's tempting to just like lay it down and start, but no, let's do this the right way. As always, I'm going to link the original video down below in the description. So if you want to check out this channel, I highly recommend it. And that way, if you want to skip my commentary, you can go right to the original video as well. Everybody else, please leave a like to this video. It helps out a ton. And yeah, let's get right into this.
In this video, I'm going to be putting an asterisk on many of the potential NBA GOATs. In other words, I'm going to kind of be playing devil's advocate in a sense and presenting a counter argument to why each NBA great can't be the GOAT. Again, this is more for the sake of argument and not necessarily an actual position. So without further ado, let's begin. And who better to start with than LeBron James? There is no way LeBron James is the GOAT. As far as I'm concerned, every NBA ring he's ever won was either circumstantial or the team he was facing was so weak and his team was so stacked that of course he was going to win, and I'm mainly referring to his first NBA ring when his super team defeated a baby Thunder team.
Yeah,
and even in that series, Kevin Durant did not get his deserved foul call with 12 seconds left in Game 2. There was a huge opportunity for the Thunder to be up 2-0 in that series, but bad officiating allowed the Heat to tie the series 1-1. Had Kevin Durant got that foul called, he would have been at the free throw line with the ability to tie up the game, and there could have been a much different outcome. The rest was history when the Heat tied up the series and then got a bunch of home games as there was a 2-3-2 playoff system.
Yeah, that was a massive favor. The Miami Heat were massively favored to win this series.
Instead of the 2-2-1-1-1 format, which the finals now operates by, for home and away games. As for LeBron's second ring, we all know that Ray Allen saved that man's career. And also, Greg Popovich benching his entire team within those last seconds.
Yep, that was a big boo-boo. That was a big boo-boo, and I could rarely say that about Popovich. But it wasn't just that. It was also Ray Allen saving him off of that brick from LeBron. Like, he clanked it. And also, why does nobody give Chris Bosh credit for that massive rebound that he got to dish it out to Ray Allen to save the series? But also, Bosh might not have got that rebound if this guy was in there. So, Pop, oh, man, I bet you wish you can have this one back.
Help. I mean, if Tim Duncan was on the floor, he could have easily gotten that rebound instead of Chris Bosh. The Spurs, for all intents and purposes, were supposed to win that Game 6 and beat the Heat 4-2. They even rolled out the Larry O'Brien trophy. The world was definitely ready to crown the Spurs as champs, and LeBron would have lost another final series. And even if LeBron won all his Heat rings fair and square, having that much talent and that huge of a super team and only coming up with 2 rings is kind of embarrassing, especially that 2011 finals.
Oh yeah, fourth quarters. Yep, this is what a choke looks like. So this is just what it is. It doesn't matter win or lose. I always respect, winners, losers of a series if you went out and fought hard. But when you choke like this, oof. He made a total of 4 field goals in the entire series in the fourth quarter. Yeah, that's got to tell you something.
Chosen one became the frozen one and averaged around 2.2 points per game in the entire fourth quarter of the first 5 games. And worst of all, he was averaging 3 attempts in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, clutch
Never
my
in a
ass.
million years would we see Michael Jordan average just 3 attempts in the fourth quarter of an NBA Finals and only score 2.2 points per game in the NBA Finals fourth quarter. There's no way a GOAT of basketball can choke at that magnitude.
Agreed.
As for his one Cleveland ring, the NBA did LeBron a favor by suspending Draymond Green in Game 5, which was a huge momentum shift that allowed LeBron to win on the road, and then holding the fort down at home is much easier with home court advantage. As far as Game 7 is concerned, once a series reaches Game 7, pretty much anything can happen, and of course his teammate Kyrie Irving hit one of the most clutch shots in NBA Finals history. That was the one that really sealed the deal to ensure the Cavs win that game.
Damn, this guy's going at it. You know, this guy's going. He's not holding any punches. This is all true.
And of course, there's LeBron's Mickey Mouse NBA bubble ring, where the Lakers had prime Anthony Davis before his injuries, and this team beat a not-so-super Miami Heat team led by Jimmy Butler.
Oh, man, I'm a big Miami Heat fan, but the Miami Heat had no business being in this NBA Finals. I'm just going to say it straight. They had no business being in there. This was not even a competition. Yeah, we all knew the Lakers were going to win this series.
Despite being the clear favorites, the Lakers still drew out the series to 6 games when they had no business having this series be that close.
Agreed.
LeBron going to so many finals were more of a product of a weak Eastern Conference.
100%.
There's no way LeBron goes to 10 straight Western Conference finals. The East was no beast at the time.
Nope. You guys, I'm sure you've all realized it by now, but that whole streak of him going to the finals every single year for what was it, like 8 seasons in a row or something stupid? Yeah, that ended when he went to the West. He's been in one NBA final since then. In what, 5 years? 5 years or 6 years? I think it's 5 years. So let's just stick with 5 years. At that point, yeah, he's been to 1 finals in 5 seasons since he's been in the West. So that's kind of the proof you need right there is, yeah, the East was weak. So LeBron kept going to the finals, but then kept getting his ass whooped in the NBA Finals. That's why his record is 4-6.
LeBron is struggling to make it to Western Conference playoff series, let alone Western Conference finals. All in all, LeBron has 4 rings, but 3 of them seem kinda hollow.
Yeah.
And with only 1 solidly earned ring, no way there's enough cachet to be the GOAT of the NBA. Oh, and I didn't even bring up Le 4-6 in the NBA Finals.
Le 4-6.
He's had so many All-Stars and so much help, yet he still lost 6 NBA Finals.
Yeah.
He has a losing record, yet he played with so many future Hall of Famers. Yeah, LeBron's not the GOAT. But to be fair, LeBron did go up against some of the toughest competition in NBA history, being those insane Warriors teams, which brings us our next player, Steph Curry. Sorry, Wardell, I cannot consider you the GOAT for a number of reasons. 1, you're a one-way player. Yes, Curry plays solid defense, but if we're going to be extra critical in terms of all-time greats, Steph Curry does not play GOAT defense, only GOAT offense. So many other potential GOATs are two-way greats.
Yep.
In fact, I think literally every other GOAT aside from maybe Magic Johnson are considered two-way great players. Curry's not a bad defender, and he's technically an okay defender, but he's not a GOAT status elite defender.
Agreed. Yeah, he's in my top 10, but he's far down there. He might even be 10. And that's the only reason is the defense, because everybody else in my top 10 are fantastic two-way players. Magic is, like he said, Magic is the only one that's but he did play defense. In my opinion, he was a good defender. He wasn't a great defender, but Steph Curry is a below average defender. So that is a strike against him. And that's why Magic is in my top 5 and Steph is closer to 10.
Also, 2 of his rings come with Kevin Durant, and he was facing LeBron James with J.R. Smith. And in the first Warriors-Cavs finals, LeBron all alone took the Warriors to 6 games. That's kind of embarrassing on the Warriors' part. When Steph Curry faced a fully healthy Cavs team, he lost to them. Next up, we have Bill Russell, and before we begin, I just want to say both on and off the court that he was a legendary man, and he had an awesomely positive impact for not just the sport of basketball, but for the world itself.
Absolutely. That's cool he's doing that, because his job now is to prove why he's not the GOAT, but it's good you got to respect him. There should be nothing but respect to Bill Russell. And I hate that when I say Jordan's my GOAT and then somebody brings up Bill Russell, I don't want to reply to it because I don't want to say anything bad against Bill Russell. I really don't. I just Jordan's my GOAT. Bill Russell didn't do anything wrong. He's the greatest winner of all time. But I think Jordan's the second greatest winner of all time. And Jordan is the best individual player of all time. And that's what gives him that spot for me. It doesn't mean I don't want to criticize Bill, though. I've got nothing but respect for him.
May he rest in peace. I am only being critical of his basketball NBA ability. With that in mind, Bill Russell can't be the GOAT for a number of reasons. One of the biggest reasons is that most of his opponents were milkmen and plumbers, while the Celtics had one of the strongest NBA teams ever constructed.
Yeah, though.
During every season of his career, Bill played with no less than 3 and as many as 7 other future Hall of Famers on his very same roster.
Yeah, it's kind of like the LeBron James thing, because with Bill Russell, you could often say Bill wasn't the greatest player on the team. So that's been the biggest strike, plus the fact that they owned most of the talent. Basically, like most of the talent was stacked. They were a stacked team. Let's just be real. But for me, that's one of the biggest things is if you're not the best on the team, then I disqualify you from the number 1 position. Of course, Bill Russell's in my top 5, but he's not in my number 1 position because of that. Jordan, all 6 of the championships, he was the best player on a team. In fact, every single year he played in the league, he was the best player on the team. So whatever success he gets, he gets the credit for. Whatever failures they have, he takes the blame for it, and that's the way it should be. But with this team, dude, it's so stacked. It's so stacked.
So at every given moment, every waking second he stepped on an NBA court, alongside him was at least 3 and at most 7 Hall of Fame all-time greats. Forget Super Team or Justice League teams. This was a straight-up entire Infinity War worth of superheroes on your side.
Yeah.
Also, his trips to the finals were much shorter and technically easier by those standards. There was only a division semifinals, a division finals, and lastly, an NBA finals. So just 3 rounds, and the semifinals were a best of 3, not a best of 7. Plus, for the bulk of his career, there was only 8 teams, and before you say that less teams would cause more competition, keep in mind the Celtics had a monopoly on NBA talent at the time. Less teams was most definitely something that worked in their favor. Once they knew how to beat said teams, all that was left was the repetition.
Yep.
More teams create more randomness, and more randomness makes it harder to go to the finals.
Absolutely.
If the GOAT debate was ever about ring total, there would never be a debate. Bill would be the GOAT and there'd be no discussion. Even without putting an asterisk, I think fans value the quality of rings over the quantity of rings, and that in itself is self-explanatory.
Yes.
Why players with much less rings are in this debate over Bill Russell. What's not
For instance, when I can't remember, I'm getting old, man. The season where the New England Patriots went undefeated in the regular season, went to the Super Bowl. This is when it had Randy Moss. Went to the Super Bowl and faced my New York Giants. Okay. If the Patriots won that Super Bowl, it would be no big deal. Like, yeah, of course, you're supposed to win. You went undefeated. You're obviously the best team in the league. You were crushing everybody. They were blowing teams out by 20-something points, and in football, that's massive. Then come the New York Giants, and they fucking take down Goliath. Now, that's not a regular championship anymore for the Giants. This is like David beat Goliath. That championship, yeah, I will never say like it counts as multiple, but there's a different feeling behind it where we go like, that's impressive. What they pulled off there was impressive, and with what the Celtics were doing, it was like, oh, it's kind of a stacked deck, Same thing with LeBron's champions, his 2 in Miami, like completely stacked deck. They were supposed to win those championships.
Self-explanatory is how anyone would consider putting a guy who averages 26 points per game, 12.5 rebounds, and 4.4 assists per game with a PER of 26.9 in the GOAT debate. And they wouldn't, because that's prime Kevin Love stats. No one would ever put Kevin Love in the GOAT debate, and they shouldn't. With these stats in mind, let me remind you that Larry Bird averaged 24.3 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, 6.3 assists per game with a PER of 23.5.
That's fair, but for LeBron to inherit this guy as his third option in Cleveland, because if we're comparing him to Larry Bird, and Larry Bird was the first option in Boston, just shows you what kind of talent LeBron was playing with.
So slightly worse stats all across the board, but 2 more assists. They are both not that athletic players and just about equal 3-point shooting as they both shoot 37% from beyond the arc. Now, I'm not saying Larry Bird would just be a mid-tier all-star like Kevin Love is. What I am saying is Larry Bird is not the GOAT.
Mid-tier all-star, though. Kevin Love was in the MVP conversation for multiple years when he was in Minnesota. I'm not trying to say he's the GOAT. No, don't get me wrong. But don't disrespect Kevin Love. Before he went to Cleveland, this guy was a monster.
There are clearly better players than Bird, and Lakers fans don't get too excited because Magic and Kareem aren't the GOATs either. Kareem may be the all-time points leader for now, but no one would ever say he's the
Hold up. This is from 1 year ago. Okay.
Greatest scorer ever, just like how many don't say that John Stockton is the best passer ever, even though he leads the league in assists. The phrase of best passer ever is usually reserved to Magic Johnson, who has less assists than Stockton. Also, Kareem played in the 70s for a large part of his career, one of the most star-lacking decades in NBA history, and one of the most fastest-paced games in NBA history, with huge amounts of point inflation due to the breakneck pace of the late 50s, 60s, and even early 70s. Pretty much what I'm getting at is that a lot of Kareem's regular season MVPs aren't the same as Jordan getting all of his MVPs in the star-studded era that he played in. Not that MVP total should be any sort of measure for ranking players anyway, because no one on earth would say that Steve Nash is a better player than Kobe Bryant.
And I'm a huge Steve Nash fan, and there's no way in hell I would ever make an argument that Steve Nash was better than Kobe. No way in hell.
Because he has more MVPs than him, it's a terrible argument.
It is.
And thus, Kareem's MVP total should be considered the same logic. Kareem also played with the Showtime Lakers alongside greats like Magic Johnson and James Worthy. But Magic isn't the GOAT either, so let's get into that. A magician never reveals his secret, but it's no secret that Magic Johnson was a turnover machine as he averaged nearly 4 turnovers a game. That's pretty much twice as many compared to other great point guards like Chris Paul, Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, and John Stockton.
It might be a little bit of a stretch here, though, because, Nash had 3, J. Kidd had 3, and these are guys who played a run-and-gun system. Chris Paul nowadays plays slower. John Stockton played a little slower as well, and this was the Showtime Lakers. I think this is okay. I wouldn't put that as a stain on Magic. Let me know what you think about that one. Would you?
To other great point guards like Chris Paul, Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, and John Stockton. Take Chris Paul, who averages about 2 turnovers a game. Imagine if he had twice as many turnovers. The NBA would scrutinize him so hard that he would have to be like his brother and sell car insurance.
I think LeBron gets like 5 a game, though. Why are we not scrutinizing him? Because he doesn't even come close with the assists.
Especially because he's not a champion, so they would directly blame his turnovers for the lack of rings.
They do that
anyways. One of the only other all-time
CP3.
great point guards who averages the same amount of turnovers as Magic Johnson is Russell Westbrook, and we already know how much criticism Westbrook gets for his turnover average. Speaking of Westbrook, people nickname him West Brick, but he's a much better 3-point shooter than Magic Johnson ever was, and he averaged just about the same amount of assists as Magic Johnson. They also average about the same amount of rebounds at a little over 7 per game. If you look at both of their stat sheets and not their trophy case, it actually would be quite hard to tell the difference statistically between Russell Westbrook and Magic Johnson. Yet no one is saying that Westbrook is the greatest point guard of all time. And Westbrook's stats are diminished over time due to playing so long. If you just compare primes, you could make a statistical argument to say that prime Westbrook stats look better than prime Johnson stats.
Yeah, that 5.5 though, 5.4 is really bad there. But that was the problem with prime Westbrook though, is he always had the ball. So like all these assists, they're all being spoon fed. You know what I mean? Kind of like how James Harden gets his assists, because he had the ball all the time. So the turnovers make sense, but that's still pretty damn high. But not this in prime Westbrook. It just wasn't a system to win. But he sure accumulated a lot of stats during that time.
Magic is also not an all-time great defender. He's a good defender, but not a GOAT status defender.
Agreed.
It is fair to be critical to say that he doesn't have GOAT-worthy defense, which is why I would personally take Kobe over Magic in an all-time Laker debate.
I do have Kobe over Magic, by the way, by one.
But speaking of Kobe, as great as he is, he's not the GOAT either. Before I begin, I do want to say that Kobe is an amazing player. He's a legend, and may he rest in peace.
Respect.
We are just going to be critical of his NBA basketball talent. Kobe Bryant is not the GOAT. He has 5 rings, but 3 of them you could say were Shaq's teams, and Kobe was just a sidekick, as Kobe was 21, 22, and 23 during that first Lakers three-peat. And yes, he was the second best player on those teams, but not the first best. Kobe only has 2 Finals MVPs, and he's an extremely inefficient player. Inefficient for GOAT standards, mind you. We're being hypercritical here.
Yep.
He has a career PER of 22.9 and a 44.7 field goal percentage. For comparison, Jordan has a career PER of 27.9 and a field goal percentage of 49.7%.
Yeah, with Kobe, it's a very simple thing, because if one of these two are going to be the GOAT, it has to be Jordan. One, he more championships, more Finals MVPs, more regular MVPs, and it was the efficiency. It was always the efficiency for me, because Jordan was always averaging above 50% until his final 2 seasons with the Wizards. And Kobe was always averaging, mid to low 40s. That was always the case with him. So if Kobe had 7 rings, this would be a real debate, but he doesn't. And that's why I got Jordan at my number 1 and I got Kobe at my number 2. And I lied about Magic being number right behind Kobe. It's hard. I fluctuate. So like Bird and Magic go next, and the order of Bird and Magic changes with me depending on how I feel. But really, if I could just say number 3 is Bird and Magic, that's how I would prefer to do it.
That is a really huge gap in efficiency, and of course there is that 2004 final series against the Pistons. Now you could blame Shaq for that series, who isn't the GOAT either, but Kobe was especially terrible in that finals, shooting 38% from the field and averaging only 22 points per game, which is bad for Kobe standards and bad for GOAT standards.
Agreed.
And in one of those games he only put up 11 points. It's not as bad as LeChoke in the 2011 Dallas series, but it's bad enough to not be the GOAT of the NBA. Now, I'm not asking Kobe to put up 100 points a night, because the guy who did score 100 points a night, Wilt Chamberlain, is not the GOAT either.
Yep.
And again, before we begin, Wilt was an NBA legend, both on and off the court. May he rest in peace.
Yeah, Wilt's another one of those guys. I don't want to say anything bad about him. He accomplished great things. And, I don't want to say anything bad about him. I don't have him as my GOAT. And I know a lot of you do. And you'll be in the comments telling me why he is your GOAT. And I have nothing but respect for that viewpoint. I really do.
He is not the GOAT. Some might even say he's the greatest stat patter of all time. There's a reason why Wilt didn't win any rings until after he stopped chucking up shots and being a ball hog and started sharing the rock. It's because Wilt's high scoring days did not lead to winning basketball. Also, the league average for those times had a team average of 73 rebounds per game, which is insane to think about. So Wilt getting all those rebounds in that era could be argued to be more a product of the era itself than Wilt's own rebounding ability.
Yeah,
Wilt
there's a ton of bricks.
Still a great player and a legendary man, but it's hard to say he's the GOAT of the sport with his so few ring total and the fact that his major stats didn't lead to championships in the first place. Now again, he eventually did win rings, but not during his amazingly impossibly high stat days. Alright, it's enough of bashing these NBA legends. It's time we be extra critically harsh on the guy many consider the GOAT, and that is Michael Jordan.
Let's do it.
Jordan was a great player, no doubt about it, but many forget just how great the basketball legend Scottie Pippen was as well. Jordan's record without Pippen is 154 and 170, which is a win percentage of 47.5%, and in the playoffs, He's 1-9 without Scottie Pippen. That's a win percentage of just 10%. On the flip side, Pippen without Jordan has a record of 295 and 185 with a win percentage of 61.4%.
The man who built the castle had to go through the hardest of times to build that castle. The man who inherited the castle had one good season without Jordan while ruling the castle. And then by the second season, it all went to hell and it fell apart. And they barely broke even as far as like they barely had a 500 record before Jordan came in and saved the day. So context does matter, but statistics alone, okay, yeah, not lying.
Playoffs, he has a non-Jordan record of 19-21 with a win percentage of 47.5%. Plus, Scottie almost led the Bulls to the conference finals without Jordan. Another thing I want to bring up is that maybe, just maybe, Jordan's mid-career retirement created a mythos around his 2 three-peats. Imagine if he never retired during his prime and then played those seasons out. What if he got fatigued and didn't have a perfect finals record because of it?
Yeah.
Again, this one is a little too hypothetical because you could also hypothetically argue that what if Jordan won during those years as well? So we could set that to the side for now. Jordan was also never able to beat Larry Bird or Magic Johnson until way after their primes, but to be fair, the Jordan that Larry and Magic were beating was a really young Jordan, so we never saw prime Jordan versus prime Larry versus prime Magic all at once.
Absolutely.
But the reason I'm bringing this up is, what if Jordan's perfect finals record is more of a product of weak finals competition? Because Jordan never went up against prime Showtime Lakers, he went up against old Showtime Lakers. If instead of the Jazz back-to-back he faced prime Showtime Lakers back-to-back, would it be possible that prime Magic and Kareem steal a series from Jordan? And yes, the 90s had some insane competition.
I mean, to stop this one right here, Jordan, pretty much every single season he was in, he won a championship, he either defeated the MVP or he was the MVP. So I wouldn't say he was going up against bad competition. He was going against the best teams in the league.
It was top-heavy competition. So the good teams were good, but the bad teams were quite bad, and this is due to all the new teams being added to the league. As far as the regular season is concerned, this was an expansion era, so there were so many new cities who got teams like Miami, Minnesota, Charlotte, and Orlando.
Oh, bad teams are still bad now. Shout out to Commissioner Dynamo. Your Detroit Pistons team is not an expansion team. So we can't use that excuse to why certain teams are bad. No, sometimes your team just sucks for a while, man. You know? So, yeah, I never buy this argument. Yeah, I don't.
And during the regular season, there was a lot of cannon fodder for the better teams to just build up their good records.
And real quick, Miami Heat, right off the bat, okay, 1, 2, 3. We can get rid of the Minnesota Timberwolves because they took some, until they got KG, they were no one. Miami Heat were great in the 90s. Orlando Magic were great in the 90s, and so are the Charlotte Hornets. Okay, between Larry Johnson and Alonzo, out here we had, Tim Hardaway and eventually Alonzo Mourning went out there, and they were a massive team. Orlando, we had Penny and Shaq. So these three actually became some of the toughest teams in the league right off the bat. So the expansion team thing, I don't think it's fair. In some ways, you have an advantage as an expansion team because you get to pick some people. You know, you get some veterans right off the bat, and then you get very favorable draft picks, and you build. You get a fresh start to build. It just didn't work. So 75% of these teams went off to a great start. And then by the end of the 90s, these guys were in the playoffs kicking ass as well with KG. So, yeah, I don't buy it. Once again, the Detroit Pistons have been around for a very long time. What's their excuse? You know, they can't say, oh, it's because we're a new team. No, sometimes you just run your team into the ground.
there was a lot of cannon fodder for the better teams to just build up their good records and get easy wins and nice stats, which helps Jordan's overall win percentage and stat outlook and might make it much stronger than it really is. Imagine if LeBron James during his regular seasons were facing baby teams and cannon fodder. Would his regular season stats look much nicer than they already are and have a higher PER?
But in a way, he was, though, because during Jordan's era, the East was stacked. In the 80s and the 90s, the East was the stacked conference. So Jordan had to fight through all of them just to get to the finals. LeBron played in the weakest era of the East, by far the weakest era of the East. So he got to the finals often. He was just stat padding and cruising through the East every single year just to get his ass whooped to the West. So I would say this one favors LeBron more than Jordan because he had it much easier. Jordan had a lot more competition to go up against just to get to the finals. And then to win the finals, shit.
But anyway, if none of these players are the GOAT, then who is? Well, of course, it's a close call between Taco Fall and Bryant Scalabrine. But that debate is for another video. Let me know what you thought of this video, and if you want me to add more players in the future, I would love to talk about the likes of Hakeem Olajuwon, Tim Duncan, and much more. Don't forget to dunk on that like button, subscribe with notifications turned on. I'm Rebound Rewind, and I'll fast forward to you later.
Yeah, I think Tim Duncan definitely should have been in this video, just for ring's sake. I could see how Hakeem would be in part 2 of this. Once again, 2 other players on my top 10. But let's just be real. It's Scalabrine all the way. This is the real GOAT. This is the white mamba. He's the real one. Anyways, everybody, y'all know who my GOAT is. I'll defend it to the end, but I also, I'm also honest about it. So whenever Jordan has a failure, I don't try to bury it or hide it. I just think it's part of his story. It's part of his journey. Nobody ever won every single year. It's not possible. Jordan winning every single finals is crazy enough as it is. That's like almost impossible. But nobody ever got drafted into the league and won every single year. Like, it's just not a thing. It doesn't happen, But yeah, MJ's my GOAT. There's no doubt about it for me. And it's just because all the things that are like stains against his legacy, I don't see them as stains. I see them as, well, that's a guy playing his ass off who didn't win. He'll be back next year. And he always was. He'd always be back next year, better, stronger, and more motivated. But yeah, I got nothing to say about any of these guys except for a little bit about LeBron. But outside of that, they're all fantastic players. They're all fantastic players, and they all deserve every bit of respect that they get. So I'm not going to say a damn bad thing about them. But no matter what my viewpoint is, it doesn't matter. Because, yeah, we're all going to have this debate no matter what. So anyways, let me know what your take is on this. If you guys are sensitive, this might have triggered you. For me, it didn't really trigger me. I just think it was funny because this guy went at every single person that's in the GOAT debate. So he did it very fairly. But yeah, leave the video a like if you like this content. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more like this. And I hope you all have a wonderful night. I am going to go take my dog on a WALK because it stopped raining out there and the weather is beautiful. So I bid you all adieu. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you all a lot. And I will see you in the comments. All right. Peace out, everyone. Thanks for watching.